There is an all out assault by this administration on the rights of citizens in this country, regardless of their status, race, or opinion, that is protected by the First Amendment. Attacking our rights to freedom of speech, freedom to protest, freedom to petition or criticize our government are the actions of a fascist and a fascist regime. Silencing the masses is the ultimate action taken by fascists in history's past. And those are the actions that are writing the history of America right now. What first happened to Stephen Colbert and now to Jimmy Kimmel, the events, the rhetoric, and the entirety of each of these situations should be alarming to everyone who believes in our democracy and in our Constitution and the rights that it grants and protects for each and every one of us. And we need to be aware of exactly what occurred and who was involved in the situation that surrounded Jimmy Kimmel. My name is Kurt Mullet. I'm Hoosier Blue, and I have something to say. Let's get at it. I want to start with the events that took place right after Charlie Kirk was murdered. It was quite obvious the direction and commentary the radical right wingers were going to adopt surrounding this event. Blame it on the left, blame it on liberals, accuse us of being violent, radical, left wing, lunatic extremists, and spew their hatred towards us like they have been doing in a slow escalation of intensity for decades. The hateful attack that came from the radical right wing lunatic extremists almost immediately in such an organized fashion from all angles left me sitting back in my chair thinking, this almost looks like a laid out strategic plan put into motion.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Before I continue, I want to point out something that I'm sure most of you probably noticed. He did not mention one Democrat or one liberal who has fell victim to right-wing violence. Not one. Proving once again that this has absolutely nothing to do with crime and criminals. It's all about his hatred of Democrats. He addressed this country with these false accusations and revengeful statements without there being one valid piece of evidence as to what actually occurred. None. But as we know, this dude could care less about telling the truth or stating facts. He knows, regardless of any comment that he makes, or any action that he takes, or any crime that he commits, his supporters will not move from their undying cult like commitment to him, because the words he speaks and the actions he takes are exactly what so many of them want him to do, because they feel the same way. The hatred for liberals that comes from the felon and the modern day MAGA has eerie similarities to the hatred that Hitler and Nazi Germans had towards Jews, minorities, political opponents, and those they felt to be inferior to them during the rise of Nazism in the 1930s. He called Charlie a martyr. MAGA took it to heart. He spoke of Charlie like he was the greatest American who has ever lived. MAGA took it to heart. He blamed the violence in our country on the radical left lunatic extremists. MAGA has taken that to heart. He said it must end now. MAGA will take that to heart, just as they took to heart his tweet on December 19th, 2020. Be there, be wild. When you speak words of violence to extremists, they take it to heart. The felon is quite aware of that. He knows exactly what he is saying. Let's not forget, he told the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. They took it to heart. His claims of violence coming from the radical left lunatics is baseless and completely false. We have learned over the years that every time the felon or someone on the MAGA right has an accusation about a Democrat, a liberal, or someone on the left, it's an admission of guilt. That's exactly what he is doing here. Data collected over the years paints a much different story than the one he tells, all based on facts, not on lies. The results of a study conducted by the ADL during a 10-year period from 2013 to 2022 on murders committed by extremists in our country showed that of the 444 murders committed during that time frame, the hands of extremists, 75% were committed by right wing extremists, and 4% were committed by left wing extremists. 75% compared to 4%. He is projecting, which he is a master of, and MAGA will take it to heart. Also, in 2022 alone, there were 25 murders committed in the United States by domestic extremists. Every single one of them, all 25, were committed by right wing extremists. So not only does he lie about who are the violent extremists in this country, he is so far removed from the truth that if it wasn't so dangerous with what he is saying, it would be laughable. The hypocrisy that continuously comes from the right has a lasting and deep effect on the minds of Americans. Many who do not recognize, do not know, or simply refuse to acknowledge when it occurs. So, just to reiterate, as of right now, there is no valid proof of what took place or who was responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. In fact, there are more questions unanswered than there is evidence. Bullshit stories coming from the mouths of Kash Patel, the governor of Utah, and so many others are damaging and wrong on every level. Now, Tyler Robinson's mother has come out and said they have the wrong guy. But yet, the radical right wing lunatic extremists are continuing their hateful rhetoric against liberals in this country. And none of them are being held accountable for any of it. And for those of us who will no longer tolerate it and are pushing back in a very firm but peaceful way, with words and exposure of the lies being told by those on the right, we are facing even harsher attacks. And they are attempting to strip away our First Amendment rights of free speech. He wants to throw people in prison for speaking their minds. That is so Hitler-esque. That is exactly what Jimmy Kimmel was doing, exercising his freedom of speech, speaking his mind. He never said anything hateful. What ended up costing him his job and his show being removed was Jimmy giving his opinion and speaking the truth.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points.
Jimmy simply shared his thoughts about the events surrounding the Charlie Kirk situation and what he felt MAGA was attempting to do. He actually spoke the truth. He was not hateful. It did not create any violent reactions from the left. He simply spoke the truth. So let me share with you an example of where that hypocrisy that I spoke of earlier comes into play.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection, or something. Just kill them. Or something. Just kill them.
Here you have these clowns from Fox openly saying that we should just kill the homeless people in this country. Just kill them. Now, what happened shortly after that? Well, a gunman in Minnesota took it upon himself, possibly took these words to heart, and went on a rampage at 2 locations where homeless people were located, and he opened fire on them. Was this violence a direct result from the discussion these right-wing lunatic extremists had on Fox? Well, we don't know, because not much has been said or revealed about that violent attack in Minnesota. Just like, if I asked you who Desmond Holly is, would you know? Well, Desmond is the young man who shot 2 classmates in Colorado on the same day that Charlie Kirk was murdered. It has been revealed by the FBI that Desmond was a white supremacist who had strong beliefs aligned with neo-Nazism, was an anti-Semite, and was radicalized by a right-wing extremist online website. But little is being said about him. That is what fascists do. They control the narrative of the media. Were the right-wing lunatics from Fox fired for their comments? Hell no, they weren't. Was Fox News pulled off the airwaves for the much more hateful comments than those of Jimmy Kimmel? Hell no, because Fox is under the protection of the felon and his merry men of fascism. You know, the violent, radical, right-wing lunatic extremists are truly the problem and the source of most of the violence that occurs within our borders. Facts speak truth. Lies do not. Jimmy Kimmel was fired and his show taken off the air. Now I know it has returned, but the initial actions were taken not because of hateful rhetoric, but because he spoke of truth, because the felon has thin skin. Now it's important to understand what happened and how the decision was made and who made this decision to remove Jimmy from the airways. Besides the thin-skinned felon, Brandon Carr, the director of the FCC, who, by the way, is one of the many authors that are currently working in the Felons Administration that created the Mandate for Leadership and Project 2025. He is a player, a big player within the white supremacy organization, the Heritage Foundation, which is what this administration is consumed with. Those who are responsible for Project 2025 are running our country right now. The felon has surrounded himself with sycophants from the Heritage Foundation. Or maybe I should say, those from the Heritage Foundation found the perfect, useful idiot to carry out their agenda outlined in the Mandate for Leadership and Project 2025. Everything that is occurring in our country right now, from the kidnappings and illegal deportations, the thirst for war, the disaster known as the Billionaire's Beneficiary Bill, and almost every single executive order that has been signed, it all comes straight out of Project 2025, the Mandate for Leadership, and the agenda that it lays out. So back to Brandon Carr. He appeared on a podcast the day after Jimmy's comments and said that Jimmy should be suspended and that ABC should face regulatory consequences. They're the network that airs Kimmel Live. Now, later that same day, Sinclair Broadcasting and Nexstar, 2 major owners of ABC affiliated stations, announced they were pulling Kimmel Live from their stations because of his comments. They didn't announce this until after Brandon Carr made his comments. After this was announced, the backlash thundered in from all sides, and all of it, or the majority of the backlash, was aimed directly at the Disney Corporation because Disney owns ABC. And after just 5 days and a reported loss of $3.87 billion, ABC decided to put Jimmy back on the air. Sinclair Broadcasting, ran by David Smith, and Nexstar refused to put Kimmel Live back on the air until formal discussions occurred and Jimmy released an apology. Now, why is David Smith and Sinclair Broadcasting being such assholes about this whole situation and the comments made by Jimmy Kimmel that were simply the truth? Well, David Smith contributed $258 million to Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk in 2024. So David Smith had a direct connection with Charlie Kirk. And because Jimmy spoke out about the events surrounding the murder of Charlie Kirk, and David didn't like what Jimmy said because apparently David has thin skin just like the felon. Well, this is why all of this bullshit occurred and the basis of where it all came from. Because of the relationships that have been built between white supremacists, the felon, Brandon Carr, David Smith, and of course, Charlie Kirk. And that is why we witnessed what we witnessed. Trying to muffle people, strip free speech and the ability for people to speak their minds in this country because they don't like what somebody has to say is wrong on so many levels. It goes against our Constitution and the First Amendment. But that is what fascists do. They care nothing of the laws in this country or of our Constitution. Their book of laws, their Constitution, has Project 2025 written at the top of it. Everyone needs to be aware and pay attention on a daily basis as to what is happening in our country. This attack on our freedoms should be alarming to every single American. If it is not alarming to you, well, you are just like the fools of 1930s Germany who wore a red armband, except you replaced that red armband with a red hat. I appreciate your support. Please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Tell your family, your friends, and your coworkers about me. My name is Kurt Mullet. I'm Hoosier Blue, and I have something to say. I'll catch you on the flip side.